Yeah, but I need lots. I need good walking.
Get to that point.
I think that sounds great.
Yes.
Okay, welcome everybody. We're going to start tonight with a public hearing. The Tompkins County Legislature will hold a public hearing at 5:30 p.m. in Legislature chambers concerning the continuation of and modifications to Tompkins County Agricultural District Number 2, located on the west side of Cayuga Lake and encompassing the towns of Newfield, Ulysses, Ithaca, and parts of Danby. If you're interested in speaking at the public hearing on this topic, then you'll need to fill out one of these blue forms that's located in the back. I already have 2 people that have signed up. So I'd like to start with Pete Angie. Come up, yep, it's one of those mics.
Hi, good evening. My name is Pete Angie, and I am chairman of the Town of Ulysses Planning Board, and I'm here on behalf of the town of Ulysses tonight. And I just wanted to thank you all for your work on protecting our farmland. It is an important effort towards our future. We are here tonight because we oppose recommendation 1 of the report, which is the inclusion of Area 1 on the Town of Ulysses map, the address 1618 Teganic Boulevard. This piece of property sits squarely within the conservation zone. The Town of Ulysses is unique from all the other municipalities that are here that are being considered tonight. There's nothing like this in the other municipalities. We have Cayuga Lake, and along that we have the conservation zone. It's been in place for a decade, and it's a unique characteristic to the Town of Ulysses, and therefore has unique protections within our zoning. It has steep slopes, it has erodible soils, and it's sort of the last buffer on the way to the lake. It was created in the interest of protecting the water quality of Cayuga Lake, and it exists as a strip sort of along the Town of Ulysses. You can see it here. I don't know if people can see this, but you see the yellow is ag district, and then this gray here is this strip of conservation zone. And you can see how this parcel right here, basically, if included into the ag district, would bisect this conservation zone. We are not opposed to the ag district. We are not opposed to farmland protection. We have no opposition and are in support of addition of these areas 2 and 3 into the ag district. But this area is special, and there's been considerable careful planning through our comprehensive plan to determine sort of what kind of protection the conservation zone needs. And some of the features of the conservation zone, really, they would be weakened by adding this particular parcel into the ag district. We have building, let's see, what is it? Building standards, we have lot coverage standards, we have setback standards. There's a lot of planning that went into this and has been in existence, for a decade. And so, in the interest of maintaining the quality of our water and also this unique natural area, which does include Teganic Falls State Park, we are opposed to the addition of Area 1 on the Town of Ulysses map. Was that my timer? Is that my timer?
It is. If you need a little more time to wrap up, you can, but maybe.
I have an associate here, Rebecca Schneider.
Okay.
So I appreciate that, but that was my introduction. I'd really like to let Rebecca speak to the.
Sure. Before you sit down,
yes.
you said you represented the Ulysses Planning Board?
Yes.
Did the Planning Board vote on this?
Yes, we did, and we actually sent a letter to this group on December 19th stating our opposition.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Rebecca Schneider, also from the Planning Board. Again, thank you for the work you all do. It's really important to us. A few extra words about the conservation zone. It's been a critical part of the identity of our town for more than a decade. It does include Teganic Falls. It's the scenic byway almost, a road that goes up along the lake, and that's part of why we've tried to protect it so carefully. People really appreciate how beautiful that view shed is there. It includes our unique natural areas. They run right, most of our unique natural areas are in the conservation zone. It also has the steep slope issue, and I'm a hydroecologist from Cornell University, and I'm very concerned about erosion with the more intense rainfalls we have, and keeping vegetated tree habitats is really critical to prevent serious erosion. We have examples where that wasn't done. That's part of the protection we have in the conservation zoning to try and make sure that stays highly vegetated. So steep slopes, the unique natural areas, the aesthetic value, and the kind of identity of the town is linked to it. We are currently going through our new comprehensive planning. And again, we all agree this is key to the identity of the town, and maintaining that corridor of a kind of a natural habitat is what we want to do. So the ag, making that one parcel ag district would really remove some of our ability to protect that habitat and that environment. And that's why we're very in support of agriculture, big time. But that one piece, you only have less than 10% of our town is in this conservation zone and the lakeshore zone. Everything else is viable for agriculture. We just want to try and protect that strip and maintain its identity. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak at the public hearing on the agricultural district? Okay, then I'll declare the public hearing closed. And we will open the regular meeting of the February 20th, 2024 meeting of the Tompkins County Legislature. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can we have the roll call of members?
Champion?
Yes, here.
Susan Curry?
Here.
Deborah Dawson?
Here.
Rich John?
Here.
Ann Corman?
Present.
Mike Lane?
Here.
Greg Mezzi?
Here.
Veronica Pillar?
Here.
Lee Shirtliff?
Here.
Mike Sigler? Mr. Sigler may join us later remotely. Shauna Black?
Here.
Travis Brooks?
Here.
Randy Brown?
Here.
Dan Klein?
Here.
13 members present.
Presentation of proclamations, petitions, communications, and notices.
All communications were in red folders earlier.
We will be having an executive session tonight. I will announce the specific purpose shortly before we go into executive session. And I don't have any ideas about reordering of business. Is there anybody that wants to suggest something that should be reordered? Okay. Privilege of the floor for the public. If anybody wants to speak, we ask you to fill out one of these blue forms. They're located in the back. I'm going to read the rules that you're agreeing to, and then we'll call the people that have signed up. I agree to a 3-minute time limit. I agree not to raise my voice. I agree not to use lewd, obscene, profane, slanderous, or libelous language, or speak or act in a manner that would tend to incite a breach of the peace. I agree not to speak about county personnel matters. Personnel matters include comments about the job performance of named county employees other than elected officials. After 3 minutes, I agree to leave the microphone and yield the floor. Transferring time to another person is not permitted. I agree that if I cause a disruption and I'm asked to leave, I will leave the chambers. So we only have one person signed up at this time, and that is Zach Wynn.
Good evening. My name is Zach Wynn. I live here in the city. I'd like to start out by speaking on behalf of Julian Assange, a fellow journalist the United States government is attempting to extradite so he can die in federal prison. This is occurring today. All for the crime of journalism and exposing bad acts of those in power. Assange should be set free. He is a hero, not a criminal. I've included in an email I sent you audio of another fire that occurred at the Art House on Sunday morning. While I am told things have improved slightly, the building is still in crisis, and I ask you to please do what you can do to help the people living there. A man was found dead of an overdose near Jungle Number 1 recently. Shortly thereafter, there was a cardiac arrest in Jungle 1. This area is a black hole that swallows people in crisis. Allowing it to remain means more people are certain to die. Locally, people have begun to debate the safety of going into the jungle to retrieve their stolen bicycles, which are often ransomed back to the owner. Code Blue will end in about 2 months. Allowing the site to fester until spring will only make managing it more difficult. I'd also like to make the legislature aware of a roadblock that occurred yesterday afternoon on Seneca Street. This roadblock began as a die-in to raise awareness for the Palestinian cause. The unpermitted roadblock caused a major disruption to traffic and forced the Ithaca Police Department to scramble to redirect vehicles, TCAP buses, ambulances, and fire trucks. At the December meeting of the Public Safety Committee, I pointed out the potential for this to occur, as there have been numerous organized shutdowns of roads and highways by activists rallying for the Palestinian cause of late. In the dispatch audio, you can hear trapped vehicles honking their horns en masse, with drivers apparently exiting their vehicles to confront protesters. These violent roadblocks and disruptions of traffic are part of a larger pattern of behavior that I have documented as far back as 2014. They are criminal acts that are very dangerous in a number of ways. I would like it to be made clear by individual members of the legislature and the body as a whole that this behavior is unacceptable and not a legitimate form of protest. It is illegal to set up a roadblock no matter what the justification. There is every reason to believe these roadblocks will continue to occur. I've included video of an incident from 2020 I previously mentioned when a mob at the intersection of Cuga and Buffalo surrounded a vehicle and tried to open its door. This occurred just across the park from the legislature. I invite you all to imagine yourself trapped in one of these vehicles. Allowing this behavior to continue without speaking out against it is an endorsement of the behavior itself. The same people who came into this legislature on behalf of the Palestinians, mocking the idea of releasing the hostages, hissing and booing, feel comfortable using violence, fear, and intimidation to achieve their political goals. There is a word for that: terrorism. Thank you very much.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak under privilege of the floor? Okay. Next up is privilege of the floor for municipal officials. I do not see any municipal officials, just double checking. Okay, then we are up for privilege of the floor for legislators. Mike Lane.
The latest version of the congressional redistricting maps in New York came out this week. I hope you all had a chance to look at them. The most ridiculous district is the one we are in. If you look at it, it reaches from the Hudson through a small neck to catch Tompkins County. When you redistrict, you're supposed to have communities of interest. You're supposed to have regular boundaries, none of which can be applied to our district 19, isn't it? I'm trying to remember the number of our district. This was originally put together by a special master downstate, and when the redistricting commission re-looked at it again, didn't make much change. There was some discussion about putting Tompkins County with the district up in the Syracuse area, but that would have made sense as far as the shape of the district, for example, and the community of interest as well, but that didn't happen. The redistricting games that are played, I don't care which state, which party, they're not a good thing. And I just want to point out that I think Tompkins County got mistreated again in this redistricting process.
Greg Mezzi.
Thanks, Dan. Just wanted to highlight a couple of dates from the Tompkins County Chamber of Commerce. March Business After Hours is in collaboration with the Cortland Chamber, and that's going to be at the Tompkins Cortland Community College. That's on Wednesday, March 13th from 4:30 to 6:30. Obviously, we have a lot of interest in TC3, so thought that might be something that folks would find interesting. And then also on Thursday, March 28th, there's the 2024 Economic Summit. That's from 8:30 to about 1 o'clock on that Thursday. So just wanted to flag those dates for members of the community and also members of the legislature if they have any interest in attending either of those.
Could you give those dates again, please?
Yeah, so the TC3 Business After Hours in collaboration with the Cortland Chamber and the Tompkins Chamber is Wednesday, March 13th from 4:30 to 6:30. And then the 2024 Economic Summit is Thursday, March 28th, and that's from 8:30 till about 1 o'clock. And registration is required for both of those.
Mike, did you have your hand up again?
He just said what I was going to ask about. We have to register if we want to go to those. Is that correct?
Correct.
Other legislator privilege of the floor. All right. We do not have a chair's report tonight, and there are no chair's appointments. So next up, we have a standing item on our agenda, special topic presentation and/or discussion. And I've asked that we try something new this year, which is to rotate through some of the agencies that we work closely with, and a lot of them have a large investment of money involved with them that we don't necessarily hear from all the time. So I'm going to rotate through various organizations, and the first one up is the Industrial Development Agency, and Rich John has agreed to give us a very brief update about things going on there.
Sure. Thank you, Dan, for giving me a chance to just put a little bit of focus on the IDA. For those who may be watching at home, the Industrial Development Agency is essentially an authority created by the legislature to consider assisting development projects in the community. And I want to give you just a little bit of data around this, and I called there today. I got some draft information, so these are not exact figures. There's an immense amount of reporting that goes to New York State, and it's in process right now, so don't hold me to these numbers exactly. But Randy, you had a question about, we talk about the abatements, but how much tax money is coming from the projects that go through the IDA process? And of course, these are just projects that are open now. All the projects that got abatements and went through their period are paying full tax. But of those that are getting some form of abatement, the pilot payments total around $4.3 million. And the abated taxes are approximately $5.6 million. And you'd say, well, if it's a straight line abatement, and these are abated usually on a 7 or 10 year period, but it's it's a decreasing amount each year, it should be exactly half or very close to half. But what skews it is we do give greater abatements for affordable housing projects. And those projects would not work financially without a longer abatement and a deeper abatement. And so that raises the number a little bit. But you can see that as the projects go through, they start paying more and more tax until they're fully taxable. Those abatements are spread across approximately 47 projects. And they include hotels, affordable housing, market rate housing, senior housing, dormitories, nursing homes, manufacturing, medical facilities, solar farms, parking garages, and the conference center, which is about to open, have all received some form of assistance. And in addition, we have over 2,000 retained and new jobs connected to those projects. So, as I said, that doesn't count the projects that have completed their abatement period and are continuing to pay full taxes on their full value. At a recent meeting, there was some conversation about a project that received a $16 million abatement. I don't find that. The amount of the abatements given to projects is substantially lower than that. And the idea is to provide enough incentive that the project can work financially. And that's the calculus that's built into this. And again, just for clarity, the existing property taxes before a project is built do not get abated. So if, say, a property paid $30,000 a year in property taxes, those don't go away with an abatement. They remain on the property and continue to get paid. The abatement only applies to new money or new development. And we also have at the IDA a whole bunch of policies. You can see them on the website. They're all published. And some of those policies go directly to the structure of what is the formula for granting abatements, how much, what's the time period. there's 7 and 10-year abatements, and the differential is if a project decides to do much higher energy efficiency stretch goals, they can get a better or a longer abatement. But it's all on the website. We also have policies about energy, about local labor, about housing and payments into the Community Housing Development Fund that are made from these projects. And if you're interested, again, we try to be as transparent as possible so you can go see these and read them. The IDA is audited annually, every year, and we're going through that process right now. And then I mentioned that I'm an old person, and it was at least 20 years ago. I went to a talk given by Gary Ferguson, and this was before the Hilton Garden Hotel project with Cornell's involvement was built and developed. And he talked about how important it was for a community to be ready for growth and all the factors that have to come into play and the alignment you need. But he stressed the government and organizations like the Downtown Ithaca Alliance need to be ready. And we have seen that happen here. It's pretty remarkable what's happened in our downtown core. But the things he talked about, you need projects that should get built. You need community needs. For example, we need even more housing than we have now. But the demand for housing has driven a lot of projects. But you also need developers who are willing to come in and try to do them here. You need the market conditions to be right with acceptable interest rates, available capital, and sufficient labor, competent construction workers that can make these projects happen. And then reasonable construction costs. Beyond that, you also need the government support in terms of what the IDA does, but also reasonable land use controls and approval processes that work. And he talked about that, and here we are. We have seen a remarkable change in our community, and the IDA has played a small part in that, but an important part in making sure these projects are financially viable to the point they do get built. And I just say all that to say we shouldn't take our IDA for granted. There's lots of reasons we can be critical of giving tax abatements, and we should be. This IDA is pretty conservative compared to other ones in New York State, but it has made a real difference if we want to go build density rather than sprawl, and to build our tax base. We've added over $1 billion in tax base in the last 10 years and over 700,000 square feet of new construction. I'm trying to read my notes here. Right now, the alignment doesn't seem to be right there, and there are several projects that are waiting to go. I think it's primarily construction cost and interest rates, that are out of alignment. And interest rates seem to be coming down a little bit. We'll see whether they come to the point these projects, hit shovels in the ground. But it's a delicate balance. But it's great that we have an IDA. My view, we have an IDA that plays a part in that. Happy to try to answer any questions.
Questions or comments about our Industrial Development Agency?
I think I stunned everybody.
I was struck by the $1 billion statistic you gave. That's a big number. Randy Brown.
Yeah, I'll bring up the one issue I hear from my constituents, and it's solar development. And I'm not sure how the IDA is involved in that. And I know I guess abatements are done for some of these solar developments. But both the towns I'm in feel that these projects would have been done without the abatements. I don't know if that's true or not. But I just wanted to share that's the overall feeling, and that also they're losing revenue. Here's the multi-million-dollar development happening in their backyards, and they're getting, in their mind, a small pilot payment. So I'm just sharing quotes.
Fair enough. Yep. That's the argument to have. I would say that New York State has come in on solar farms and really put an overlay of regulation on what the abatement structure is from the state level. And I think because there's been such varied response, and if we want a unified electrical grid in the state, you have to have solar farms contributing all over the place. Whether that's a good thing or not, let's have an argument, but I think that's part of the rationale for what New York State has done on that piece of, so the IDA does the approval, but we don't really negotiate as fully as on other projects. Deborah?
Yeah, it was my understanding that these solar projects all get pilots regardless of whether or not they're incentivized by the IDAs. Because apparently you can't really determine flat out what the increase in value of the land underneath that solar farm is. So you're stuck with formulas and arguments among various taxing municipalities as to how they want to tax those developments. A lot of that goes on outside of an IDA incentive process.
Mike Lane.
Great report, Rich. IDAs across the state, a lot of them get black eyes because of some of the policies that they have, particularly downstate. Ours has always been a leader in doing things the right way, whether it was coming up with regulations to claw back tax adjustments, or tax abatements rather, when the business did not meet its goals, or left or went bankrupt, or whether it was trying to take the lead in how we do things like the abatements for solar. That was a tough thing to be figured out early on that we did it. The IDA serves a very useful purpose, and we don't do everything. We never did. When it was first started, for example, the IDA made a decision that it would not give tax abatements to big box stores. And that was because of Randy, of the thing that you just said, that how are we sure that they really need this abatement? And having sat on the IDA for several years, I can tell you that's one of the hardest things to figure out. They will always have, a developer will always have a reason why they can't get funded if you don't give them the abatement. And then you're left, do you take the chance of not having the extra construction and the extra jobs, or do you see whether it goes away? But big box stores, the only big box store we've ever given abatement to, I believe, was BJ's. And that was kind of a special circumstance because of the building requirements in the municipality where it was, and the the economic times we were in as well. That was the one exception that has been out there. But I think our IDA has done a great job. We've made changes in the board over the years. We listened to people. I can remember when I was on the IDA, we used to have a representative from the Ithaca School Board, not the school board, but from the Ithaca City School District Administration, would come to all of our meetings. And their problem was we were giving abatements to buildings with apartments in them, increasing the population, and the school district was having to accommodate them. And so they're going to have to raise their taxes because of that. So there's all kinds of issues that come up with tax abatements. Many people would like to see none, but I, for one, think that over the years, having the abatements has helped, particularly the city of Ithaca, move forward.
Greg Mezzi.
Yeah, thanks for the update, Rich. We often hear would this project have happened if not for the abatement? Is there any tracking that happens for projects that come to the IDA that don't receive an abatement to see if those projects actually go through, or if they kind of are, die in that process, or don't move forward in a way It would just be interesting to know, because I think that would be a strong way to answer but without this, then that.
Yeah, you're right. It's a difficult counterfactual. And, you know, we do have some of that in that there's what's called the CTAP, and it's this long acronym, the Community Incentivized Investment Tax Approval Policy, something like that. It's a city policy, but it has a zone, and it includes the downtown core. It goes down West State Street and into the West End a bit, and has incentivized projects there where they've happened. The argument we hear is that, well, College Town, you get large developments there that are outside of the CTAP, and they get built. And the response to that is, yeah, because there's a different economy up there because of the presence of the students and the available incomes, frankly, of a lot of those students to pay pretty high rents. Some of that has come downtown, so now we have some students living in the downtown core. I don't know that that's bad, but I agree with you. If there was a detailed financial analysis looking at projects across the state to try to figure out how did this price out in practice? What was the return on investment? Because that's the critical element. You want some return on investment, but not too much. You don't want to give away too much, but that could be calculated across the state. Nobody's undertaken to do that. That would be a really valuable study, hard, but I think that would be the best way to try to answer that question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments about the IDA? Veronica.
I guess this is almost piggybacking off of Greg's question. Actually, first, can you send us in written form some of those numbers you said, with the understanding they're draft? My head, despite being the math guy, my head's filled with numbers and I didn't follow everything verbally.
I'd be happy to, but you know what? I'd feel way more comfortable. What's called the Paris report that goes to New York State will be completed soon. And I'd much rather give the non-draft document, but I would be very happy to share that with everybody. It's a spreadsheet is where I get this information, and it's really informative about IDA projects.
Okay, that would be great, thank you. And then I guess I would also like to see if possible, some of the information Greg's talking about, and even, like, does anyone track, even just within Tompkins County, not statewide, I guess, is there a way to see like a list of development projects of whether they apply, like certainly the ones that the IDA fund or not, like has pilots with, and ones that applied for IDA abatements and didn't get them, but also projects that didn't even apply but are like the same types of projects, I don't know how you would define it, that might be IDA projects, like a new business facility, a new apartment building, not like someone building their own house.
Yeah, the information Greg is asking about doesn't exist right now, in that study hasn't been done. But if it was done, you'd have to do it in the aggregate, in my view, because you have business confidentiality of private companies that you couldn't just demand that they give you their financial information. It would have to be done in a way that you couldn't identify specific projects. But again, a big undertaking, it would have to be done, I think, on a broader level. We could try to do it here, but we're small enough that you might be able to back calculate to individual developers. So I don't know.
I guess I'd be interested in having the info about maybe individual projects, individual developers, but not their internal financials, just this was the project. It is an apartment building with X units in this location, and it at least didn't get IDA funding. I know it's not quite the right word. And not or didn't get like local government support, financial support, and we don't need to ask for information that they don't need to give.
The projects that come before the IDA for consideration of a tax abatement fill out an extensive application, and there's a tremendous amount of information. What happens, though, before that is there's the executive director is looking at projects and looking at the financials on a confidential basis, and really advising a lot of projects you won't qualify. And so they self-select and they don't come forward. So we wouldn't see projects that never happen. But the ones that apply, that's public information. You can review that, and it's pretty extensive description of the projects.
Okay, thank you, Rich. We are going to, like I said, we're going to rotate through various organizations and agencies that we deal with, and the IDA will come around again in a few months, so this is certainly not the last conversation we will ever have about this. I'm going to move on to reports. First up, Lisa Holmes, County Administrator.
Thank you, Dan. At the last legislature meeting, I discussed having an update from the Community Justice Center at tonight's meeting, and we're going to plan for that at the first meeting in March, just FYI. So that's coming. I haven't forgotten that. The only other update that I have to share is that next Monday and Tuesday, I plan to be attending the NISAC conference together with Norma and Bridget. I just notified Holly that in our absence, if anything, if an emergent nature takes place, she's on it, but nothing will happen, and we'll look forward to all the information that we glean at NISAC this year. That's all I've got.
Your comments for Lisa? I'll just mention for the public, that's the New York State Association of Counties. All right. Next up is our acting county attorney and soon-to-be acting county administrator, Holly Mosier.
Yes, I've added that to my list of things to look forward to next week. I don't really have any updates. Everything seems to be going well. We're busy as usual, helping a lot of departments in the county, which keeps it all interesting and fun. The posting that we had for the paralegal aid did close, and Aaron and I are working on figuring out who we're going to interview for that. So,
any questions or comments for Holly? Okay, thank you. Next up, Lori Scarrett, Director of Finance.
Good evening, thank you. I have a few updates. The first being the status of the in-rem foreclosure process. We currently have 29 properties, 12 of them are residents, 17 vacant or commercial properties. A list was sent out to all of you last week with the updates of who's still in foreclosure for your information. Just wanted to let you know this week I will be participating with the City of Ithaca in their search for a new controller, and their interviews are this week, so I will be joining them for that. And at the last BCP committee meeting, I gave an update of all of the financial reports for the quarter. I am prepared tonight to give you a really brief overview of those, and then based on what your wishes are, I can either send you that entire presentation. You can view it on the BCP YouTube, or if you would like, I could present that at our next meeting on March 5th. But just to start with that, the sales tax for the quarter for Tompkins County was down 2.76%. For the year, for 2023, it was up 1.36%. For counties outside of New York City for the year, sales tax was up 2.4%. We came in at just over $45 million in sales tax, which is $2.7 million above where we had budgeted it to be. Cannabis money has come in for 6 months, June through November. In total, we have received $198,000, the largest amount in the first quarter of $124,000 total, and $73,000 in the second quarter, September through November. Now that's the total cannabis money. If you recall, Tompkins County gets to keep 25% of that, and 75% goes to the City of Ithaca. So Tompkins County's share for those 6 months was $49,523. Occupancy tax figures for the end of the year came in at just over $4 million. In 2022, it was 3.7 million, so that is an additional 252,000 or 6.65% increase in occupancy tax. And as for our cash and investments, our balance at the end of December 31st was $122,414,244 in a mix of investments, money markets, New York Class, checking, and for the first time, we've started investing in CDs. All of those investments are earning above 5%, with the exception of just a couple that are lower than that. But most of them are now over 5%, which I'm very, very pleased with. The interest earnings for the year to date was $3,393,135. So again, that's just a real quick highlight. So I'm happy to send you the presentation, happy to do it at the next meeting, whatever your pleasure.
Thank you. Questions or comments for Lori? Randy Brown.
Yes, thanks, Lori. I did look over the data on the various investment accounts and whatnot. I really appreciate your work on that. Thanks a lot. But I have a question on cannabis sales. If a store opens in another town outside of the city, how is that money split? Or do we track that?
Yeah, so New York State sends us a report of what jurisdictions the retail establishment is in and directs us where that needs to go. If it resides within a city and a town, for example, it gets split between those two. Otherwise, it's just 25% of the total comes to us and 75% goes to where the establishments are.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Greg Mezzi.
Thanks, Lori. All great news. We didn't budget for cannabis money, correct? That wasn't in our budget, or was it?
That's correct. We did not.
Okay. And then in terms of interest earnings of the 3.393 million and some change, do you know of what we budgeted for interest earnings for this past year?
I believe it was around 800,000.
Okay. So
don't quote me on that. I don't have it in front of me.
1 million. Yeah. Okay. So a net positive there by at least a couple million.
Yes.
Great. And then the same for sales tax. You said 2.7 million over budget?
Correct.
Okay. Great. That's good news. Appreciate it. Thanks for the update.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments for Lori? Mike Lane.
Thank you, Lori. You gave even a more extensive report at our budget committee, and I think if folks I would like to see you send those to the full legislature so that they could look those reports over. I think they were very helpful and very, very self-explanatory.
I'd be happy to.
Any other comments? Lori, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any resolutions to be added to or withdrawn from the agenda? And we're going to move on to the consent agenda. Start with the appointments from the Housing and Economic Development Committee to the Strategic Tourism Planning Board. Richard Floyd, Tompkins Cortland Community College representative. From the Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee to the Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee, Robert Brown, member, and Jennifer Majka, member. From Planning, Energy, and Environmental Quality Committee to the Agricultural and Farmland Protection Board, George France, Agricultural Land Preservation Representative, and Darren Buck, farmer. And to the Climate and Sustainable Energy Board, Jaden Beck, member, and J. Louise Bruce, member. Resolution A, budget adjustment, Whole Health Department in conjunction with the Sheriff's Department, Crisis Alternative Response Engagement, CARE Team Vehicle, ID 12172. From the Housing and Economic Development Committee, Resolution B, acceptance of Empire State Development Round 13, Market New York Grant to improve IthacaTrails.org, ID 12169. Resolution C, appointments to Industrial Development Agency and Tompkins County Development Corporation Board of Directors, ID 12181. From the Government Operations Committee, Resolution D, approval of appointment to the Tompkins County Council of Governments, TCOG, ID 12182. Resolution E, adoption of list of designated officers and employees required to file an annual financial disclosure form, ID 12184. Resolution F, authorization to disperse funds, County Administration, ID 12188. Resolution G, voting machine technician, increase in hours, ID 12193. From the Planning, Energy, Environmental Quality Committee, Resolution H, authorization of lease agreement renewal with Tompkins County Soil and Water Conservation District for space within the Tompkins County Public Works Facility, ID 12175. Resolution I, budget reappropriation of grant funds to the 2024 budget for the Business Energy Advisors New Construction Program, ID 12223. And Resolution J, budget transfer across budgeting units, information technology services and county administration, payroll, HR, operations administrator, ID 12157. And from the Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee, Resolution K, delegation of authority to authorize certain tax and solid waste fee refunds under $500, ID 12187. Is there somebody who would like to move all that? Travis Brooks moves, Veronica Pillar seconds. Vote.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Susan Curry,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Klein,
Yes.
13 ayes. Consent agenda passes.
We're up to standing and special committee reports and motions. First up, Public Safety Committee, Rich John, Chair.
Thank you, Dan. The Public Safety Committee has not met since our last meeting, but we will be meeting February 29th. That's a Thursday because it's been moved from its scheduled Tuesday meeting because of the NISAC conference. We'll be meeting on Thursday, February 29th at 1 p.m. We'll be talking about goals, and we also will have some visitors coming in to talk about the Sunflower House project, which is a housing project that works with people coming out of jail and prison and re-entry into the community. I would also just mention our jail numbers at 62 with 0 board outs. And then I have one resolution, which is Resolution L, appropriation from contingent fund, replacement pay and terminal pay reimbursement, ID 12152, and I would move it.
Rich moves. Is there a second? Shauna Black. Questions or comments, discussion about Resolution L? Okay, let's have a vote.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Susan Curry,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
13 ayes. Resolution passes.
Thank you. Next up, Downtown Facilities Special Committee, Randy Brown, Chair.
Yes, thank you, Dan. We met on the 13th of February and had a good meeting. We focused on various things, placement of various departments and facilities downtown, which I have a resolution for, I'll get to in a minute. But we also talked about how we're going to address the deconstruction of 30308 North Tioga Street. And that was a long discussion. So we're going to bring that back. We tabled that resolution. We're going to bring that back for our next meeting, which will be the 13th of March. And we need to reword that so that we can all understand it better. The next meeting is going to be, as I mentioned, March 13th. One of the big things on that agenda is going to be focused on requests for qualifications for architects and engineers. I think that's going to be a really deep discussion that we need to talk about how we want to request, send that request out for this project. And I have one resolution.
Any questions or comments for Randy before we do the resolution? Okay.
Okay, this is Resolution M, resolution designated placement of departments within downtown facilities, number 12104, and I move that.
Thank you. Is there a second? Greg Mezzi. Discussion.
I'll just add, this is for all the buildings that will remain. So there's this building, there's the administration building, the old jail, and the new building that we're building. Those are the three buildings we're focused on and how departments will be placed.
Thank you. Mike Lane.
Randy, I think we also mentioned at the committee that this is our best shot at this right now, but as things happen and the actual plans are put together, we can make adjustments.
Right. Yep.
Lee.
To that point, Mike, I understand the necessity to begin the planning process and designate the departments that we hope to have in that facility. I remain concerned with well, we're up to 55,000 square feet now. And my question is for those that may be listening and for my own edification here, what's the escape clause? Is there a point at which when you go out to bid or get schematic designs, estimates that if need be, the brakes could be put onto this or reconsidered? And I'll give you an example, a municipal project that I'm very much involved in that went to bid and was estimated to be a $5.4 million project. The bids come in at $8 million, stopped it cold, and we went back to the drawing board, reduced square footage, and change in construction styles, and came in at about 40% of what those bids were. So, you know, there was an ability for us to make adjustments as hard as the decisions were. Is that something that we're able to do at this point in time, or are we committing to 55,000 square feet in these departments? Is there an escape if something?
I believe so, and I'll have Lisa respond to that as well. It's in the capital plan, what we're focused on here, but no money has been committed to the project yet, other than, and when we do finally get requests for qualifications, we're going to get some funds that they're going to request for that work, and I think that's where we're going to have to start spending some money, and we'll have to decide at that point for that phase of it. But that doesn't mean we may go through that whole process and decide that, you know, this building is more, I don't know, than we really want to expend, and then we would have to make that decision here. So.
Did Lisa want to say more than that, or is that
I think that sums it up. I think this just allows us to take that next step with the schematic design where we can get some more concrete figures to work with and determine next steps from there.
Shauna?
Yeah. So I continue to have some pretty serious concerns about the parking elements. And I know that we're committed to doing the center of government here in the city. And I know that we've also talked about doing a parking study. But I want to make sure that we account for our employees under the contracts, the ones that receive parking. And I mean, if we're saying that this is a place where people can go to get services, people shouldn't have to park 6 blocks away, especially if they're coming for the Office of Aging, especially if they have disabilities. Like, we need to make this accessible, and that's really the only concern I have about it being downtown. And so I want to make sure that we don't ignore that fact. Because we're moving forward and we're really excited about this building. Because I think for me I'm having a really hard time with that right now.
Rich?
Yeah, I want to speak in support of the resolution. I was impressed with the discussion we had at the committee level. There's a lot of heavy lifting here. There was a lot of decision-making that we reached consensus on. I was very happy about that, and I think it's very critical that we do set direction. With that said, Lee, absolutely. Everything I just blathered on about with the IDA, we're going to be in the development business. You know, we are going to have to pay attention to construction costs, to labor, to interest rates, to every bit of cost on this thing, and it may look very different than as we see in this resolution. But if we don't set the direction, we can't start. So, you know, I'm 1/14 of the decision making on this, but I'm fully open to reassessing if we hit a wall somewhere. But we have to try, and this gets us going. It's really good.
Greg.
I think it's important to remember, too, that we could be in a better position in 2 years from now when shovels actually go in the ground. If you look at material prices 2 years ago, right, through the roof, you look at them today, still more expensive than 4 years ago, but not as expensive as 2 years ago, right? So there's a lot of fluctuation that happens. So I think we just need to be really mindful, but I think we also need to have this mindset of the future is not always bad, right? Because sometimes markets can adjust, rates can come down. You know, we talk a lot about sort of the doom and gloom of, you know, years to come and the unknown, but the unknown could be a positive turn. And I just want to highlight, you know, construction costs and material costs 2 years ago, a lot different than they look like today. 2 years before that, you know, a different story. So I also hear parking every time we talk about a facility, and it's something that we need to keep top of mind and really figure out how we handle this. I think it's important, though, too, that we, as part of the communication to whoever is going to be designing and building this, that we look at sort of a total transportation demand management plan, and it be not just parking, because there are all alternative methods and there are other ways in which we can potentially solve some of those challenges, but 100% agree that it has to be accessible to the public. Us doing this, it should be easier for us to serve those that we're serving through the construction of this building, and I hope that we all sort of keep that front and center. I think as a legislature, we have two constituent groups: the staff, right, because we make policy decisions and set direction that influences them, but then also the community, because, you know, that's ultimately who we're held to account for. And I just also want to say, in this process, it was a little long and it worked out well in the end, but I think it was the right amount of time. And I know the staff and Lisa and Lisa's team put a lot of energy into this, so I want to make sure that we thank them for putting the information together in a way in which we could have some of that discussion and debate and different options, because I think it really worked out well in the long run. And I think this resolution gives us a great degree of flexibility and opportunity to have a really impactful center of government, but also looks at some of our other facilities in giving them sort of new life, which I think is also important.
Mike Lane.
I appreciate what Shauna said about parking. Greg, to your point, that point's been made before about alternative ways of transportation, which are important, and it ought to be out there for people to have as a supplement or a choice. But what I'm really concerned about is our employees, and not having to say to our employees, you have to take a bus.
Veronica.
Greg said a lot of what I was going to say about transportation and accessibility and parking. Shauna said we want this place, like the building, to be accessible to employees and to people who would visit, and I very strongly agree with that. If we're building something new, it shouldn't be hard to get to at the end of the day. And I think parking has to be part of that solution. It cannot be the only solution, or the only part of that solution, partly because not everybody, if you don't have a car, then what are you going to do? We can't say, you have to have a car to work at Tompkins County, or you have to have a car to come. I mean, even that. We can't say that. Obviously, we're not saying you have to have a car to come to the new center of government building. I think that's part of why it's going to be downtown instead of somewhere else. But also, parking spaces are kind of expensive for the space they take up. And so the more and more parking spaces you have, the more everything else gets pushed out. And like a one person, one car all the time situation would not be a solution. So I guess I would encourage us, instead of thinking about parking, think about accessibility, as in people being able to get to the building from wherever. And then, like Greg said, think about a holistic solution. I keep envisioning like a park and ride lot somewhere a little farther out, and then some kind of bus loop that could bring people in, and it wouldn't have to just be for the county. Could we make that? I don't know, but I imagine a much more vibrant community with that than more and more parking lots and more leaning into car dependence instead of away from it.
Okay, we are on Resolution M. Is there any further discussion about Resolution M? Deborah, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would remind my colleagues that we do not have control over alternative forms of transit. We don't have control over TCAT. We do not have a robust public transit system. And I'm speaking now as chair of the board of TCAT. We also have a substantial percentage of our county employees who cannot afford to live in our county and have to commute here from out of county. There is no public transit option for those people. So while I appreciate that we would all like to see people weaned off of the one car for one person thing, and we might want to promote the idea of a park and ride, we don't control all the moving pieces of that. And unless and until we do, and I don't think we want to get into the transit business, we're, I think, obliged to accommodate the parking needs of our employees.
I would like to remind our colleagues that we are discussing Resolution M, resolution designating placement of departments within downtown facilities. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on the subject? Greg.
So as it relates to the concentration of employees and the use of space as highlighted in the resolution, some of the other challenges that may come with that are vehicular transportation. So that's why I'll use this opportunity to speak to the resolution. I hope my colleagues remember this conversation when the costs potentially increase because we have to create vertical parking. Because not everything can be surface parking. So as we're looking at numbers and we're looking at the budget, and there may be a proposal for vertical parking or subsurface parking or whatever the case may be, that all of those come at an additional cost. So I'm sure we'll all vote in favor of those costs so that we can provide the maximum amount of parking in that space. Because I think there's a little bit of two sides of our mouth, I guess, when we talk about this, because we sit and we talk about our energy and our green goals, and we make millions of dollars of investments in updating our fleet and our facilities, but then we're still stuck on surface parking. So like, which is it? And I think that there is some element that we have to, if we're going to have a focus on vehicles and vehicle transportation, which is fine, we have to understand the cost that brings to do it in a dense area, and it cannot all just be flat surface parking. So when we come in potentially with a bigger budget or a bigger request, we need to remember that some of that may be related to parking and the concentration of employees that we put in this area and the concentration of services to serve the community. I hope we all support that increase and that additional spending because it's probably one of the ways we're going to solve the parking issue. But I do still sit here and struggle with a little bit of our focus on green energy and green facilities and all of that, and still having a conversation on surface parking.
Is there any more discussion about Resolution M? Let's have a vote then, please.
Amanda Champion.
Yes.
Susan Curry.
Yes.
Deborah Dawson.
Yes.
Rich John.
Yes.
Ann Corman. Yes. Mike Lane,
Yes.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Dan Klein.
Yes.
13 ayes, resolution passes.
Thank you.
Next up, Health and Human Services Committee, Shauna Black, Chair.
Our committee is going to meet tomorrow at 1 PM, and we are going to go over some of our goals. We have a few resolutions, and for those of you that are on the committee, I do have some liaison reports or some liaison assignments. So if you could see me during break, I'd like to go ahead and figure out who's going to be where. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Shauna? Next up, Housing and Economic Development Committee, Greg Mezzi, Chair.
Thank you, Dan. Our next meeting will be March 6th from 3 to 5. We'll be celebrating our vice chair's birthday on that day, Travis Brooks, for the committee. So it should be a fun and lively meeting. More to come on the agenda as that gets released here in the next couple of weeks. And I do have one resolution and doc ID 12195, appropriation from contingent fund, terminal pay, workforce development deputy director, and I would go ahead and move that.
Thank you. Is there a second? Susan Curry. Discussion.
This is a pretty standard resolution we see quite often. So if there's any questions, I'm sure Lisa can probably answer that better than I.
Any questions or comments? Okay, let's have a vote.
Amanda Champion?
Yes.
Curry?
Yes.
Deborah Dawson?
Yes.
Rich John?
Yes.
Ann Corman?
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Greg Mezzi?
Yes.
Veronica Pillar?
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff?
Yes.
Shauna Black?
Yes.
Travis Brooks?
Yes.
Randy Brown?
Yes.
Dan Klein?
Yes.
13 ayes, resolution passes.
That's all I have for today.
Great, thank you. Your mention of a birthday reminded me, do we have a legislator birthday tonight?
We do.
Go ahead, Amanda.
Our lovely colleague, Ms. Deborah Dawson here, has her birthday tonight. And
94.
You should sing.
That's good. I look pretty good for 94.
You do.
Do you want us to sing to you?
Oh, knock yourselves out.
She would.
Please.
Okay, ready, everybody?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Deborah. Happy birthday to you.
That sounded a bit dirge-like.
Or not, we never rehearsed.
Thank you.
Thanks for being born. Next up is Infrastructure Committee, Lee Shirtliff, Chair.
I don't think I can top that. Facilities and Infrastructure met last Thursday, February 15th. Heard a number of reports from various departments, as with the other committees, discussed goals, not only those that the departments have developed and pushed through through the county administration, but also we'll be returning to the subject as a committee next month. In your committee minutes and on the YouTube, you can see the Highway Department's projected roadwork maps for 2024, and they again have an ambitious schedule for the paving. Resolutions on the agenda today, and I'll start with resolution number O, acceptance of Department of Energy funding for solar-powered electric vehicle charging system, ID number 12171. Lisa, you'll have to remind me, 3 facilities where the charging stations will be?
I was afraid you were going to ask me that.
I think I remember.
Yeah, well, I'll give you a quick break here. We need a second. Shauna Black, thank you. Okay, you're back on.
That's correct.
Public Works was one of them, Health Department, I think.
And
the
I
second
thought,
one.
I thought public safety.
Airport, public safety, and public works. Yep.
This comes to us through a congressional directed grant.
Any other discussion? Okay, let's have a vote.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Susan Curry,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
13 ayes, resolution passes.
I have resolution number P, balancing test analysis regarding the subdivision of property in the city of Ithaca on North Tioga Street, in particular 408 North Tioga Street. And you'll find a substituted resolution in your packets tonight. We did amend at committee level the original language, and the main part of that was the words "in the spirit of collegiality," and this has to do with the sale of the property with the red house. And Lisa, I'll put you on the spot again. You did brief the committee on that and have had ongoing discussions among a number of parties, and it appears that everybody has come together in the spirit of collegiality, and I will move that resolution.
Thank you. Is there a second? Deborah Dawson. Discussion. Okay, let's have a vote.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Susan Curry,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
13 ayes, resolution passes.
Resolution Q, establishing a capital program for shelter. ID number 12219, so moved.
Mike Lane, seconds.
And this follows through on discussions the legislature has held in recent months regarding the need for shelter in the county. There has not been a capital program thus far, and Norma and Lisa have advised us that there is funding in the capital reserves that would establish this program at $1 million.
Discussion. Okay, let's have a vote.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Susan Curry,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
13 ayes, resolution passes.
Okay. Any last business for the Facilities and Infrastructure Committee?
I'm good.
Thank you. Next up, Government Operations Committee, Amanda Champion, Chair.
Thank you. We have not met recently. We will meet on March 7th at 10 o'clock. And I think we're going to have a lot of stuff on the agenda. So come prepared to talk all morning.
Questions or comments for Amanda? Okay, next up, Planning, Energy, and Environmental Quality Committee. Ann Corman is Chair.
Thank you very much. We met on Monday, February 12th, and we finished up our advisory appointments, I believe, for the year. And we had a presentation from regarding NYSEG and the RG&E, which is the Rochester Gas and Electric Long-Term Gas Planning proceeding. So there's a lot of detail to that, so I encourage folks to look at the Zoom meeting and see the presentation from our planning department. Just one note, thing that really stood out to me is that we believe we're the only municipality that has their planning department chiming in these proceedings, so I'm very glad that we're doing that. So for instance, one of the things they noted was that although they're supposed to adhere to the new state climate plan, they were not. The proceeding or the draft plan was not in accordance with the state new climate plan. So that was helpful to have our planning department point that out and help make some suggestions for revisions. And so the final revised plan will be out in April. And we also reviewed, with the help of administration, reviewed the department plans. And the next meeting that we'll be having is on March 11th. It's a Monday at 10 a.m. And since I believe at that meeting we'll have on the agenda the agricultural and farmland resolution regarding changing the agricultural district, and in lieu of the comments from the Ulysses Town Board Planning Department, I will invite them as well as the Ag and Farm Board to come to our meeting, so that will help us inform us voting on that revision. And then after Peak votes on it, then it will come to the full legislature. And so I'll want to ask too, the Vice Chair, Veronica Pillar, who chaired that meeting for us in person, if there was anything else I forgot.
Thanks, Annie. The only thing I would add is if folks are interested in the conversation that Peak already had about this ag district modification, not that when we voted only to schedule the public hearing that we just had, that I would recommend checking out the January 17th Peak meeting, where we had a presentation from someone from the Ag and Farmland Protection Board, and it was a good conversation about the nuances there.
Okay, questions or comments for the Peak Committee? All right, thank you. Community Recovery Fund Advisory Committee let me first announce that there's a video coming out tomorrow, it'll be a press release tomorrow, starring some people that are in the room, plus a whole bunch of community, organizations that we gave grants to. I got a sneak preview today. It's really professionally done and really highlights the good work we did on this one. So you can look for that starting tomorrow. We've been hearing a couple of things very recently about organizations that are either declining their award, there's only just one new one of those, or a couple that wanted to modify their contracts in ways that were not a really easy yes to, that they wanted to modify their contracts in pretty significant ways, which makes it really good that we are scheduled, this committee is again scheduled to meet. It's going to be on Monday, March 25th at 10:30. And there will be quite a few things to discuss at this meeting. That is my report. Any questions or comments? Mike Lane.
Glad to hear about the video that's coming out. Would be very, very nice if that could be broadcast on Channel 15 on the cable.
Dominic, is that a doable thing, you think? Our communications director is nodding yes. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right. Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee, Mike Lane, Chair.
Thank you. We met on February 8th, had a robust meeting, and we began by talking about the departmental goals that Lisa brought forward to us to look at. We had a very lengthy discussion with Lori Scarrett. You've got a taste of it tonight, and she's going to be sending out those reports. So I think they were all positive, and I think her reporting effort was excellent. We heard from our Human Resources Commissioner, Ruby, and about the process that we're going to move forward on for the direct report evaluations. Remember, the direct reports are our county administrator, our county attorney, our county director of finance, and our legislature chief clerk. We also heard from Veronica on her regular report on the Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee. We've got a couple of resolutions. Shauna, is there anything you'd like to mention?
No, I think that's great. Thanks, Mike.
Sorry, Amanda.
Well, just, I was just going to follow up on the SMART working group that Ruby pulled together for the performance evaluations. You should have gotten an email from her looking for all of you to give input on questions or things that you would like to be asked of the direct reports during that process. You're supposed to send your comments to me, and I will share those with her and go on from there. But I think she said the 26th was when she wanted you to send stuff. So I will harass you again on email if you don't send me something by next week.
Thank you for mentioning that. That's important.
Mike, you have resolutions?
Are adjusting wages to support the living wage in Tompkins County, ID 12190. This is, if I get a second.
I want to second that. Susan Curry.
This is adjusting it to the AFCU standard that we seem to do every year. And I believe all, if not, are there any employees now that aren't on the living wage for Tompkins County?
I believe seasonal worker is one, and information aid, those need to be adjusted.
Okay. We're pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
Randy.
Yes, I'm just not familiar. How did we decide that we were going to use Alternative Federal Credit Union as the basis for this? Is there any other, I know Ithaca College, I think, does a study as well. I mean, how did we decide that?
There was a committee back when Joe Mariana was the county administrator, and it had not-for-profits on it. It had people from, I think, the chamber and others that looked into this issue of living wage for our employees and for the contracts that we solicit for contractual services for the county. And as I remember, there were different living wage I don't know what you would call them, but they were different groups that had come up with living wages across the state. There were 3 or 4 of them. And AFCU had been asked to do that locally. I don't know who asked them originally, but it, of course, was the highest of the ones that were reviewed. But at that time, I believe it was recommended by that group that we go ahead with the AFCU proposal, and we did adopt it at the legislature. After that, it has just continued. They revise it every year or two, and we've continued to adopt it. We don't have to, that we could do something different. We could find another group that proposes this or another metric out there, but at this point, this is what we're doing.
Do we get something in writing from them showing us that's how they calculated it, or how does that work?
I don't know.
The methodology that alternatives use to calculate the living wage is available on their website. It takes into account the cost of living, various factors in the cost of living locally in Tompkins County.
It has to do with also whether there's health insurance provided by an employer or not.
Rich.
Yeah, at the committee, we had this discussion, and it came up, we were wondering, is there somebody at the county who's looking at the methodology, and we were going to try to determine that. I don't know if, Lisa, you got
To my knowledge, we have not, staff have not studied the methodology since we've made the determination to accept the alternatives as the standard for a living wage.
I guess I will vote for the resolution today, but I'd say going forward, we probably should have somebody at the county looking at the methodology to say this makes sense. Thanks.
Greg.
Yeah, Randy, at tcworkerscenter.org, there's a breakdown that has kind of a what is a living wage and a little bit more sort of plain English outlay of how that number 1845 based on 2080 hours, which is the average work hours for a 40-hour employee, gets you to a certain number amount per year based on average expenses in the area and things like that. So there's a little bit of that, not detailed methodology, but that's a good place for somebody to go and take a look at how that's specific to our area. And then the other question I have on the resolution is, did we budget 1845 in this 2024 budget as a living wage, or is there significant budget adjustments coming based on this increase from the previous 16 and change that it was before this newest study that's every 2 years?
I would have to go back and look. We budgeted for what we assumed to be somewhere around the negotiated salary increases through bargaining, and so it was considered to be part of that, because the couple of titles that I'd mentioned are not, that's, in terms of the whole big picture, it's not that much.
But this also does affect election polling location workers as well, which is something we did, I think, 2 years ago.
Yes.
So that would be, I think, maybe more sizable.
Likely, yes.
Okay. I guess it would be interesting to know, rather than the line of like make the necessary budget adjustments, what might those budget adjustments be, or what, maybe is information only, not part of the resolution, but it would be helpful to have that information of, this is what it impacts, or this is what we budgeted, this is where the budget adjustments are going to need to be.
Sure.
Veronica.
Just about the living wage methodology, I just sent out, and also Brittany, I think, simultaneously sent out the Worker Center report that explains the methodology in enough detail to make an 8-page report, and I think you can follow more references and stuff from there. So I'd recommend that we all read or reread that 8-page report prior to our next discussion of living wage methodology. Thanks.
Susan.
I would just say that when they finish the wage study, anyone who has worked with the Worker Center usually gets that report. So I think it's probably, because it was already done, had been sent out, and then there's usually a lot of publicity around it. So I remember getting that information at the library ahead of time, pretty much once they had it done.
I'm going to say that, assuming we are passing this tonight, that this becomes committee work over the next year, probably budget committee, to just look into this a little further, to also just double check about where this resides in terms of policies with the county. That thing that was passed 12 years ago, is that a binding thing? That kind of work. That's my suggestion. Any further discussion tonight? Okay, let's have a vote.
Amanda Champion?
Yes.
Susan Curry?
Yes.
Deborah Dawson?
Yes.
Rich John?
Yes.
Ann Corman?
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Greg Mezzi?
Yes.
Veronica Pillar?
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff?
Yes.
Shauna Black?
Yes.
Travis Brooks?
Yes.
Randy Brown?
Yes.
Klein?
Yes.
13 ayes, resolution passes.
I also have Resolution S, market adjustment for white-collar positions. That's ID 12199, and I so move.
Rich, seconds.
These are the positions that were designated in the compensation study that we had. for adjustment that were out of whack with similar positions in other parts of the county and other municipalities that were studied. And these, we're just going to go ahead with those here, and it isn't a matter of negotiations. We're just going to be doing it as a legislature.
Discussion. Okay, let's have a vote.
Amanda Champion?
Yes.
Curry?
Yes.
Deborah Dawson?
Yes.
Rich John?
Yes.
Ann Corman?
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Greg Mezzi?
Yes.
Veronica Pillar?
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff?
Yes.
Shauna Black?
Yes.
Travis Brooks?
Yes.
Randy Brown?
Yes.
Dan Klein?
Yes.
13 ayes, resolution passes.
Anything else for or from Budget Committee? Deborah.
So I have a question, actually several questions that are sort of peripherally related to our adjusting wages to support the living wage in Tompkins County. In the last week or so, the Worker Center issued some information indicating that the level of wage and wealth inequality in Tompkins County is among the highest in the state. And it kind of details the challenges that people face in lower paying jobs, which led me to wonder, the Worker Center suggested that one solution to this problem, or one way to mitigate the problem, would be to establish a countywide minimum wage that was equivalent to the determined living wage. I don't know if that's within our purview. I don't know if that's something we've considered. I don't know what impact that would have on local businesses. I don't know which committee would undertake that kind of an inquiry. But if we really are concerned with leading by example and adhering to living wage recommendations, I would suggest that, I don't know whether it would be BCP or HED, or a joint effort, but I think that's something that we might want to investigate.
Veronica.
I just want to say that the 2024 committee assignments and responsibility page, for whatever reason, lists living wage explicitly and lists it under WDIC. And so I guess I'm getting ahead of myself, but that was one of our many goals to discuss this year. And of course, recall WDIC reports to Budget, Capital, and Personnel, so anything we do goes there too, certainly of this type of scale.
If I may respond to that, my understanding is that WDIC sets policy for the county within the county workforce. I think an examination like this one, which would be directed towards changing a law that would affect businesses in the county, I think that would have to be considered by a more formal standing committee, maybe two. Certainly, I wouldn't have any objection if there was some combined initiative. And I don't even know if it's something realistic we can do, but I think given how unpleasantly surprised I was by the findings in that report, we really ought to be considering whether there's something we should be doing. Thank you.
Right.
My interpretation of that WDIC and the living wage, I would hope that we could have that conversation in HED, and I'm more than happy to put time and make space in that committee to have that conversation. I'm sure it would entail multiple meetings and multiple presentations, but that's something that I know other legislators have talked about in the past, and I think as a committee we're open to that discussion. So by all means, if that's the direction that the legislature would like us to go in starting a conversation, more than happy to have that. Dan, if you agree that that's the right place to have it. And so happy to put it on the agenda at some point and pull the right people together for I'm sure what will be a vigorous and spirited discussion on the topic.
Just to respond, I can imagine it fitting into different committees, and I would suggest the committee chairs start talking to each other and working something out. Might be a joint meeting, might not. How's that sound? Mike Lane.
Yeah, this isn't the first time this has come up. And I would bet, historically, what is being brought forward by the Workers' Center now has always been the case, or has been the case for years and years and years. We've always been an area with low wages and high cost of living in Tompkins County. So, you know, what they're saying is not surprising. But to try to have us as Tompkins County have a local law requiring all employers to have a living wage as the minimum wage, first of all, I'd be very surprised if we have any authority to do that. I think the minimum wage is normally set by the federal government, and in the last decade, the state government has set a minimum wage. But I'm not aware of any county. And if you're
that was part of my question.
If you're going to do this, I really think that you probably need some kind of a task force looking at it, because the ramifications of this and how it would affect our employers out there, from not-for-profits to you know, regular small businesses, could be very large. And does that mean our businesses start leaving Tompkins County?
Well, that was another part of my question.
I would like to remind everyone there is no resolution on the floor, and we agreed that we would take this to committee. So with that in mind, is there anyone else that would like to speak right now? Lisa.
I just wanted to make folks aware there was a task force that began studying this issue prior to COVID, and I can track it because I was still at the Office for the Aging and was part of the task force. It was convened by the Workers' Center. Ian Greer from Cornell was a part of it, the Chamber of Commerce, and several others, and there were several different employer surveys that were conducted, small businesses, large businesses, municipalities, educational institutions.
Well, we talked about it.
It continued after COVID, and those same businesses were resurveyed because wages went up quite a bit afterwards. So I would just suggest to whichever committee takes this up, to speak with the Workers' Center and with Ian Greer at Cornell, because the information is fairly recent that it's been, there's a lot of good information that they have to share and that they've collected on this topic.
Any other comments or questions for or from the Budget Committee? Okay, thank you. Lots more to come, obviously. Workforce, Diversity and Inclusion Committee, Veronica Pillar, Chair.
Thank you, Dan. We haven't met since our last legislature meeting. Our next meeting is Wednesday, a week from tomorrow, the 28th at 3 p.m. Agenda's not set yet, but it probably won't include a discussion of the living wage. We do, for our March meeting, we tentatively have a presentation about it lined up. So Greg, I'd be eager to speak with you about this prior to that if you don't want that to happen.
Questions or comments for Veronica? You. There are no individual member-filed resolutions, correct? Correct. Minutes of previous meeting, February 6, 2024. Will somebody move that, please? Randy moves. Rich seconds. Any discussion of the minutes? Vote, please.
Amanda Champion?
Yes.
Susan Curry?
Yes.
Deborah Duxon?
Yes.
Rich John?
Yes.
Ann Corman?
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Greg Mezzi?
Yes.
Veronica Pillar?
Yes.
Lee Shurtleff?
Yes.
Shauna Black?
Yes.
Travis Brooks?
Yes.
Randy Brown?
Yes.
Dan Klein?
Yes.
13 ayes.
Thank you. Is there any unfinished business? Okay. I want to move that we go into executive session. In accord with Article 7, Section 105 of the Public Officers Law, an executive session will be held for the discussion of two matters concerning the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation, and two matters concerning the proposed acquisition, sale, or lease of real property, or the proposed acquisition of securities, or sale or exchange of securities held by such public body, but only when publicity would substantially affect the value thereof. Is there a second? Veronica Pillar seconds. Have a vote.
Amanda Champion. Susan Curry.
Yes.
Deborah Dawson.
Yes.
Rich John.
Yes.
Ann Corman.
Yes.
Mike Lane.
Yes.
Greg Mezzi.
Yes.
Veronica Pillar.
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff.
Yes.
Yes. Travis Brooks.
Yes.
Randy Brown.
Yes.
Dan Klein.
Yes.
13 ayes.
Okay.
Motion passes.
Thank you. We'll take just a few moments to shut down the screens, clear the room, and when we'll go into executive session. When we come out of executive session, I do not expect that we'll be taking any action. Okay. Thank you.
Oh.